right over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mickey.
Welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave.
And Mickey!
Live from the City Studios in Australia. Revolution Radio, if you didn't know it, has a chat room. You can go to freedomslips.com. You can chat to us and listen from there. Check out our website. We have one. It's pretty cool, that interweb thing. shinysideout.net. Check it out for more info. Also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Blogger. We've added one. There's heaps of ways, though, you can listen to us, not just through the radio. Remember, if you live in Kentucky, you can tune into FM, WZZR 101.3 FM. If you're anywhere else in the entire world, you're going to have to listen for your particular style. If you like apps on a smartphone or tablet or whatever, phablet or I don't care what you've got, Revolution Radio, TalkStream Live, TuneIn.com, Radio Tuner, Spreaker, iHeart, Live 365, and our very own app, Shiny Side Out, which is pretty cool. I read it. It's nice. At home, if you prefer it, I just editor comments. At home, you can listen to us via a Grace tabletop digital radio. It looks like a real radio. In fact, it really is, but it's now digital. If you are currently driving around listening to one of the apps, but you're in a GM motor vehicle with a receiver-enabled radio, you can actually just tune in there. Turn it up. Especially if it's set of lights, turn it up and listen to the words conspiracy and black helicopters and you name it, everything we just heard. All of these things are revolutions in radio. Meki, when I grew up, I had none of this stuff. None.
Me neither, nothing. Maybe I did, but I didn't know.
They were all ready to be liberated from the code. If you want a CD of our last year's shows, check out the station's website for details. I hope you do. Please do. It's pretty cool. Then you don't have to, keep using bandwidth. So if you're listening to us on FM and you don't have the internet, well, yeah, that would be awesome. So, I think Hawk could just walk the disc to someone in his neighborhood. Do you know what, Meki? We've got this. We have a method. People can call into the show if you're really super keen. You can do this. And if you're in the United States of America, you can call in on 347-688-2902, or you can connect via Skype if you have a PC or a smartphone. Just add the word Freedom Screen. Freedom Screen. I have to say, Solaris had an awesome show all over again. You know what, Meki? I was listening to, and she had Dr. Richard Miller on. Mm-hmm. Richard Allen Miller on the show, and geez, he was fun. I don't think that's the first time. Yeah. I don't think it's the first time he's been on the show. But they had a great segue to our show, and they were talking. He ended up talking about time travel. I couldn't believe it.
Really?
Yeah, and then I
didn't catch that. I didn't catch that. Okay.
Right near the end, and I messaged Solaris, and she said, Dave and Meki will sail you on into the night. They're going to be talking about time travel. She said, how's that synchronicity, she said.
Nice.
Oh, I know. So, this is show number 145.
540 and 100.
Yes. 100, I love it.
5 more shows, believe it or not. 5 more shows to the big 150.
Oh.
You know what? It just goes real quick now. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it just boom, 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 150, 50, 150, boom, there you are. It's amazing, and thank you very much for your continued support, both the station and the listeners, of course, and you guys in the chat room. Makes it more fun for us as well to have you there, trust me. So yeah, it's been overwhelming to actually get to this 145 at the very least. And not running. People keep asking me, Becky, don't you run out of stuff to say?
Oh, they make it up. No. There's no way.
Yeah, we make it up. That's right. Good to set it best. In fact, you might know it differently. There's more between heaven and earth than our school wisdom would have ever taught us, and I believe that is true. Okay, there's much more mystery and unexplained phenomena and mysteries and all kinds of just crazy stuff, tinfoil head stuff that we are not aware of, that we make it our mission, Dave and I, to bring to you the great listenership out there, wherever you might be in the world. And this is a global thing. That's even better. How good is that? You know, it's just fantastic, I think.
Did you know, Meki? I know right now that we have an audience in Serbia.
Is that right?
Yeah, right now, right this show, we are definitely online in Serbia. And
How good is that?
this is the new age of radio.
Yes.
This is changing the way we do things.
You're right. And look, the revolution that we're seeing, people are talking about the new platform that everybody's going in, and they're talking about the cloud. There used to be an old time, used to be mainframe, right, in the olden days. After that, it was the server, client environment that Dave and I grew up in, more or less. And now it's the third platform, you know, which is the cloud. The cloud really is just a whole bunch of infrastructure sitting somewhere real cheap.
And that's all it is.
That's all it is. That's it. There's no mystery to the cloud. But the concept around it is new. The commercial constructs are new, and this show is one of those constructs. Even though it's not a commercial construct, it's a construct which allows a radio show to exist on the internet, right? So it is hosted somewhere, of course. You know, the servers are in the States for the most part. The hosts are from all over the world, like Dave and I are in Australia. You've got a whole bunch of hosts, of course, from the States. I don't know if there are any other countries as well, but now think about that. This is global collaboration. This is what technology has allowed us to do. That's a cloud-like social contract, a new social contract, right? We have the technology and we're getting together driven by a common goal. Right?
Yeah,
and this is where the human role should go. We should go there, right?
Completely. One of the things that I was always concerned with was when people were selling software as a service, right? Because it's not yours. What happens if the company goes under? Blah 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 blah. And look, the confidence is spreading out. It's growing into not the software as a service so much as storage as a service. Everything else is a service, rather than considering it purely as, well, we don't even consider it a service. We just call it the cloud. Where is it? I don't know. It's in the cloud somewhere. And you mentioned the funniest quote I've ever heard so far in my entire life about the cloud. It's just somewhere cheap.
What it is?
I love that. It is. There's trillions of hackers trying to get into it right now as we speak. But you know what? It doesn't matter where it is. You're going to have at least 1 billion trying to get to you. So, you know, at least it clustered. Takes the heat off you. Right? That's what I'm going to say.
Oh, totally. I want to quickly tell everybody out there. You might know already. I want to quickly tell you how the cloud started. So Amazon and Google specifically, I'm not advertising here, but those guys specifically needed a whole bunch of computing power and storage to run their businesses. It's just how it was, right? For the search engine, for the online ordering, they needed a whole bunch of computing power. Real cheap, too. Real cheap. What happened was, after a while, they thought, oh, you know what? We got all this really cheap stuff. You know, it's not at capacity for the most time, right?
Yeah.
Christmas time, it isn't it? So, you know what? Hey, someone had a smart idea. Let's sell the spare. In fact, you know what? We don't even have to sell it. We'll give it away as a business model to draw more people to our website or our Amazon ordering service or whatever it might be, right? So we're giving away storage. That's how it started. We're giving away email, which is really storage as well. We're giving away a whole bunch of other stuff. And now there are business applications you can have for free and real cheap. And believe me, those machines that both Amazon and Google have, they are super cheap. They're made from cardboard. I don't know if they're from cardboard, but they've got special contracts with these hardware vendors, and they're only making machines for Google and Amazon, for the most part, right? And these are really, really old machines. It doesn't matter, though, because there's like 5 billion of them. I don't know, something like that.
Well, Meki, just remember, you and I were there when we got the first Gmail accounts.
Yes,
I was in the one of the first groups to get a Gmail account, and one of the things that I could not believe was how much storage I was given by Google.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, how much? My goodness. I mean, I think I only just filled it up the other day. That's it.
That's it.
But a bunch of, but I mean that's gigs. Gigs and gigs. I mean, right now, I mean the amount of gigs that I'm using would be equivalent to what you could fit on that. And I'm holding up a memory stick, right?
Yeah, and that's true though. It's amazing. Here, look at this. This thing. I'm gonna hold it up as well for you guys to see.
Yeah.
That's a terabyte.
Yeah.
Where is it? That's the camera
in front
here.
of you.
A terabyte. What? Terabyte. 1 terabyte on this. I remember I bought a memory card back in the early 2000s for my job, which had like 16 megabytes.
Wow.
16. I'll never need another one. That's it. 16. That's like all the books in the world. Well, it's not, but
Yeah. Certainly,
it's
certainly
astonishing.
what you've got there, the 1 terabyte drive is certainly so much storage that I think that would have had every single university and research computer in the 80s stored
Yeah.
on that without even faulting.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's it.
In fact, they could have all used it at the same time. That one thing. The joke, of course, is that someone can hold a box like I'm holding up, which is a 3 terabyte drive, right?
Yep.
And that could be the internet one day. And you could just have your own copy. You could just go into space or whatever, and just travel with your copy of the internet. We joked, we've laughed all about this kind of stuff. And, one of the things that Meki and I, we did research on was the mobile phone technology, right?
Yep.
The smartphone. The smartphone today has what the military had in its ability. This is public information. I'm not leaking anything. It's not. Let's put it out there.
Put your pencils away.
Yeah, you don't have to record this. But anyway, so in the 80s, there was a fighter jet that, for the first time, had the equivalent of what I've got on my smartphone now.
Mm-hmm.
So just, if you want to make that comparison, go ahead. At the time, we had 486 DX100s. That's what we had as a PC to the people, and yet they had a quad-core, equivalent of what I'm running in my smartphone in a fighter jet. So just thinking about how that might be as a differential today, they might be running, some insane processor that we're not even aware of. It's more than likely that's going to be the case.
Correct.
Or of course, if you're, is it not Northrop Grumman? I forget whoever the F-35 is. If you're the manufacturer of that, they're going to be using off-the-shelf technology. If you pulled apart the dashboard on the fighter, it's probably got, I don't know, an Apple II Plus in it. Sorry, I shouldn't bag it out that much. It's probably got an iPad Air in it or something like that. Meki, I was going to say, we touched on this just at the beginning of the show, and I wanted to say the climate stuff that everyone is bandering about. There's been a couple of big news cases, hasn't it, this week? Of course, We've seen that the trail off Ferguson and all of that, which we'll get to. But the other one is climate. And I don't know who you are on the world, but if you're a climate denier, you have your head in the sand.
Or up your bottom.
Yeah, or wherever you'd prefer to have it, right? Because, that's got to be your choice. Your choice. You can do what you want. You've got blinkers on because Australia, we've been seeing on average between 12 and 14 degrees above the average temperature. Right now, we're suffering through what could only be described as 100% humidity and storms every single day from a direction that doesn't even make sense. And there's been the weather pattern looks like a winter weather pattern with the high in the bight rather than over the continent. It's just absolutely silly. It doesn't really make much sense. And yet here we are sweltering with storms. We've had supercells in Sydney and Brisbane, and there's $1 billion damage in Brisbane.
I just drove through that, to be honest. I actually just drove through it. It was shocking, yeah.
$1 billion damage from just a thunderstorm. Americans are going, yeah, suck it up, princess, right? That's not, we get worse than that. In fact, you do. You get, some pretty severe hurricanes, and I love that, what's it called? That lightning during a snowstorm?
Lightning?
Yeah, during a snowstorm. No, it's lightning during a snowstorm. It's called something particular. It's like a white storm or something. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've seen some video of that. Of course, they had some of the record colds as well as record heat as well. The US...
Thunder snow.
Thunder snow, that's the one. Thank you. California is only a couple of days away from running out of water. That's all the news stories coming out. So, we can't really complain if we just get some thunderstorms and, it's a bit hot and, you can put your air conditioning on or whatever, yeah. But I have to say that today was the first day that was closer closer to average temperature, and it was only 2 degrees above average. And yet the humidity for this time of year is off the chart. So, look, you could, however you want to look at climate and the way it's changing, that'll be up to you. Just recognise or admit to yourself that it is changing. I've got some friends in Serbia. That's how I know that they'll be listening. And he said, "What on earth's going on with the climate? Have you seen they've got floods over there again? There's floods. There's huge, gigantic storms which we haven't seen. The Thailand, or was it Indonesia, is just about to get trounced by another super hurricane or super typhoon.
Actually, the Philippines.
The Philippines, yep. And there you go. So it's all the same. No, I'm kidding. Haters gonna hate, right? But it's what three in the same year, and looking back 10 years, we had none. They say that November will be the hottest November globally on record, and right now I'm feeling it. And we're looking at the worst fire season that New South Wales, the state I live in, is declaring in advance. It's going to be the worst one. Because, we only had 5 mil of rain from one of those thunderstorms that came through, but 3,600 lightning strikes.
Yeah, that was crazy. In fact, 20 of people were hospitalized.
When you don't hear very much of people being struck by lightning.
No.
And it's usually because they're caught unaware. And the other night, Mickey, this is big news. The other night, at about 3 or 4 in the morning, there was the biggest bright flash ever that I've ever seen. It lit up the entire room, followed by the largest thunder sound ever. It wasn't that it was close, it echoed for more than a minute.
Oh.
This thing sounded like it came from space. Right? I'm not saying it did. And I know that we've got thunderstorms and there's crazy weather going on. And it's probably just that. It was maybe it arced all the way out, miles in front of the storm cloud and hit near to where we are. But everyone in our area, just over a coffee in the morning, what was that sound last night? Yeah, it was terrible. It shook the house.
Just on that, though, guys, we are going to share with you a show on the electric universe. Oh. You might have heard of that theory. It's fascinating stuff, which goes well into what you just said. So it may have come from space, not saying it did. But the electric universe is a fascinating theory, which we will share with you at some later point.
Just going on that, the comets, because they're dusty, comets being dusty and covered in ice of different acidities, could very well be capacitors and charge themselves up just through mere moving through space. All right,
through the
ether. I love that. Just like that thing that NASA with, that plastic strip that NASA were trailing behind themselves to generate electricity.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, off the climate topic, I'm standing down from my thing. What was the other thing? Ferguson, wasn't it, Mickey?
Yeah, look, I just wanted to quickly talk about the grand jury verdicts that happened both in the Ferguson case and then double whammy, bang bang, in the New York case. So the Ferguson case, you can understand, nobody actually was there, nobody saw anything. The witnesses were contradicting each other, and the unfortunate victim actually had been a little aggressive earlier in the night. That was caught on video. Okay, so they let the white, and I have to say this, the white cops go. Okay, I get that. New York, which didn't happen much after, really, and now the verdict came in as well. Same thing, acquitted. No further charges pressed. When clearly, on the video, we have an older man being strangled by the police and asking, in fact, for breath. He's struggling for breath. He's crying out for breath. I'm sorry. I mean, even at the very mildest, that's manslaughter. Okay, at the very mildest, and I'm just flabbergasted that that's fine. We think that's a good thing. Not really, guys. So what happened there? I am flabbergasted.
Mickey, I watched the video and I saw no attempt to struggle, except for the outreached hand and can't breathe.
Yeah.
That was it. People are saying, yeah, he's not doing anything. He's not fighting back. He's not resisting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
You know, the funny thing is, go on. Yep.
No, the hold, Mickey. This is the thing that came out of this, wasn't it? The hold
Yep.
that the policeman was using is deemed illegal. Where is it deemed illegal?
For the New York Police Department has actually issued before this, right? Has issued a statement saying that this hold is in fact not practiced or shouldn't be practiced and has been banned for New York City cops. This is not a as far as New York City cops are concerned, it's not an acceptable chokehold.
Chokehold is not acceptable, right? And the fact that the chokehold was indeed used, and in police terms, occasioning death, and the person gets off.
Cessation of life.
Cessation of life. Yes, he's bereft of life. He's.
It's horrible if you say these things, but you know what? There's one other thing I wanted to let you guys know, which became apparent to me in the last few weeks. The reason that Ferguson went out of control, arguably, is because there was such a heavy police presence. But not only that, they were armed to the teeth with military-grade equipment. Now it turns out, believe it or not, that the Pentagon is selling surplus military equipment to police departments.
Yep.
Across the United States.
And
that's a good idea.
And giving away their Humvees, their militarized Humvees that have returned from Iraq.
I think that's a shocking idea. The police are there to serve and protect. Serve and protect.
Well,
not guard and rule. Yeah?
Hang on, no. It's if you're going to underline serve and protect, and I believe the two words serve and protect need to be underlined.
Yes.
Who? I think all they did was transition the who in that preposition, in that statement. Instead of serving and protecting the people, it's now serving and protecting the militarized government.
The elite, yes. Guess what?
Yep.
They don't care about the rules. They're for you.
Listen
to show number 100, right? The rules. Yeah, you got rules on you. They'll law you. They will law you good with all the sciencing they do.
I law. Look, and I science.
Yeah, frequently. My favorite word though is thunder. What was it? Thunder.
Thunder snow.
Thunder snow. That's I love that word.
Today's show was brought to you
week.
by the number 3 and the term thunder snow.
Thunder snow.
Mickey,
but no, look, guys. Yeah.
In Australia, we had the same thing in King's Cross. There was a person who was they put a chokehold on them. The person was sitting upright in almost a fetal position. And the policeman was doing the chokehold, and the people standing around videoing it was saying he's not resisting. In fact, he wasn't moving at all.
Yep.
So why? Do you know every one of these? And I've done nothing this week but look at police brutality videos. And in fact, there's a rapper who's put out a song with it, but not really. That song about something about the police, and it rhymes with duck, and I won't say it. Instead of having that kind of drive behind the lyrics, it was actually, just we're watching, what Obama and wash my mouth out with soap for mentioning he's done something good, but putting 50,000, those cameras that the police have to wear on their person, in a hope to maybe turn down the violence.
I think that's a good idea as well.
But what's the good idea? Is the good idea putting the camera there so the violence gets turned down because they're unpoliceable? The police aren't policeable, and this is the only option.
Well, the question is custodius quis ipsos custodia, right? So which means who guards the guardians? Yeah, right. Who guards the guardians? So, and the thing is this though, I'm not sure. Look, I think it's a good idea. Number one. Number two, though. We did capture the New York incident on video. Mm-hmm. It's not like we did not. That didn't seem to have made a difference, though, right? Now we're adding more cameras to the world, which you have to understand though that there's more to it because cameras these days, and in fact, my company worked on that, so I know about it. Mm-hmm. Can be used for instantaneous biometric or otherwise recognition of either suspects, vehicles, number plates, or whatever. Mm-hmm. The cop doesn't have to see it. The camera sees it, flags it immediately.
That's right.
Okay, this is actually happening in Australia right now. We're using it in Western Australia specifically. So this is a fact. This is what's happening, right? And if you've got cops with these cameras, they don't have to look at anyone. The camera will do that. Look around, and then just alert the police, I guess, to any perpetrators, or maybe you're owing parking tickets or whatever it might be. So it's once again, there's good and there's bad, and now we're clamoring for it. Usually the people will always ask for these things to be introduced because they're cleverly disguised by the people in power as to something that is usually good. But be aware there are other agendas here as well.
One of the videos that I saw was a policeman, an undercover policeman, planting drugs on a store counter, and then arresting the fellow for it. But he was caught on the store camera, putting the drugs on the counter. And this was a terrible case in the US, where you're witness to this, and you feel terrible for the people who are involved, and this is one of the things, the emotion that this police brutality videos is that we're meant to trust these people. They're meant to protect and serve like they're supposed to, but they're militarily trained. They're trained to only shoot a lethal shot into the chest. Every one of my friends who ever talked about gun violence and the police have all said, but why don't they just shoot them in the legs? I said, well, you try shooting someone in the legs.
Yeah, shooting is actually quite hard, guys, right? So I don't know how many of your listeners would have ever fired a gun or whatever. I know I grew up with guns pretty much, and especially moving targets are not that easy to hit. So shooting takes some skill, and police departments usually don't stress the need for the training too much, in my opinion. At least in Australia, it's not that way. They only have to shoot, I think, 4 or 5 times a year to be considered
their
gun
license.
Yeah, to be gun fit. In America, I don't know. I have no idea. But the point is, you need to train. You need to become a good shot. And the easiest, of course, is to hit center mass. Right, center mass is the easiest. It's the biggest part of the body. Usually lethal, though. So yeah,
Usually.
it's a lack of training.
Consistently lethal. And
consistently.
But this is the only issue is, in most of the videos that I saw, the only what am I looking for? The strength of the police force as a force against the person, or the perpetrator, the perp, or the person of interest, or the assailant, whoever it is that they're concentrating their energy on, could have simply been a discussion. Hey, buddy, what are you doing right now? Rather than diving on them with 10 policemen, kneeling on their neck until they pass away. In front of their children. And what did they do? In fact, these were innocents. The ones I saw, these people were innocent. And that's the most distressing part. You don't want to be innocent and be near a police officer. Hang on. But aren't we all supposed to be until we're proven guilty? So if these people are killing people at will, because that's what it looks like, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, because I've got police friends in Australia, and we don't have that level of violence. Yeah. All I can say is, look, I hope that the police forces of the world look at these videos and self-assess themselves. Doing a self-assessment, that's better. That's a grammar. That's almost grammar. And determine whether they're using appropriate force for the need of the time. I know things can escalate out of control and it can all become terrible, and watching something on video can change your own perspective of it. I know that the guy from Ferguson is probably in the witness protection program and has moved to Zimbabwe or something. But I want that person. I want all these people. And if you're a police officer, I'd like, and maybe you should be in the military, where you can just kill people. And you're allowed to, right? Yeah. But far out. Turn it down, guys. I don't think it's necessary for a traffic stop. You don't need to kill someone over a traffic stop. And if they're walking or sitting in a park where they're not doing anything wrong, and all you have to say is, "Oh, would you mind moving along?" Rather than killing them, because they've got a whole life in front of them, and they weren't doing anything wrong. Think about this next time you need to apply force as your police force. New South Wales has the largest police force on the planet.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have the largest single police force,
Wow.
and yet we don't have anywhere near the kind of violent crimes that's going on. So this is under the same umbrella. Like in America, it's statewide, and their states don't have as many as our state does because we have quite a large state. So that's don't hate me, right? I'm just spouting facts. But anyway, so Meki, you jumped. I have to say, Meki, I've been I listen to Solarish's show. It's awesome, and just coming into today's show, I'm looking through images and reading through the show notes. And Meki messaged me and goes, "Ahoy," he says. And I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I pulled him into the call before the show, and Meki, what did you say? You said something about being late?
Yeah, I didn't catch anything you just said, dude. It sounded like some kind of robotic malfunctioning.
I am a robot.
But there you go. But I am. I essentially was driving through the thunderstorm and made it just in the nick of time for this show. Literally plunked into my chair 5 minutes to the hour, which of course is a great segue for today's show because we are talking to you about time travel. Woo! It is the second show this time around. Last week we started, and this week we are continuing, and I believe next week we will potentially continue even more because we have a lot of material we want to share with you, and there's quite a bit there to go through. We actually last time we shared some time travel stories with you, or potential time travel stories, which were quite interesting, and we're going to continue doing that today. And some of those we'll look at in some detail. We look at some of potential government conspiracies. Montauk is there as well, of course, Philadelphia experiment, Nazi bell link, and I think it's going to be a good show.
Yeah, me too. This is part two, as Meki said. And last week we talked about the physics behind the concept of time travel, where all of the big, well-known physicists, the universe we currently live in, not Newton, yeah. On top of that was built Einstein's universe, the one that all the calculations worked for, and yet he stated that it was possible. Now we're going to continue the show, and we rounded off last week's show with I witnessed testimonies from different parts of time. Funny enough, going back to the beginning of the century, 1900. All the way back up to now, talking about these different experiences people have had where it could very likely have been time travel that's occurred. Their testimonies were so drawn into the fact that these people experienced something, and it's like the Bermuda Triangle of disappearances. But whereas each one of their stories came up trumps. It came up, the only way to describe that is either a negative reality inversion. You won't get it unless you're a fan of a particular English TV show, or those young ones, or you're following the time travel slant that we've got on all of this. All right. So we're starting off. I've already got a picture up, and this is a visit to Mars with Barack Obama. Meki.
So this is going back to the 70s and 80s, guys. And Seattle attorney Andrew Basiago says that when he was a child, he and William Starlings were chrononauts, travelers within time, of course, astronaut, chrononaut, in a secret United States government time travel program, which was called Project Pegasus. The purpose of the program was threefold: to protect Earth from threats from space, to establish territorial sovereignty of Mars, and to acclimate Martian humanoids and animals to our presence. Okay, so essentially it's all directed towards outer space, if you will. And the best of Basiago's and Starling's claims, however, were that one of their fellow time travelers was none other than 19-year-old Barack Obama, who went by the name of Barry Soetoro. That was his stepfather's name, because he grew up in Indonesia. In 1980, the 3 men and 7 other youths from their Mars training class at California's College of the Siskiyous, which is a real institution, by the way, traveled to Mars via a top secret teleportation jump room modeled on technical papers found by our favorite Nikola Tesla. In fact, they were found in his apartment after his death. They jumped through a field of radiant energy into a tunnel, and when the tunnel closed, found themselves at their destination. The White House, believe it or not, has officially denied that Obama ever went to Mars. Interesting that they had to go this far. Now, we actually have more on Andrew Basiago a little later in the show. And in fact, research has shown, or at least we've been told, that there was never such a thing as Project Pegasus, not related to time travel, but it was rather denoted to the shooting down of the Axis powers military planes in World War II. So that was Japan, Germany, and Austria at that time. But so that was the only Project Pegasus that the military was referring to, and there was never any time travel, of course. And we never sent Basiago or Starling into the past. There are also photos of Basiago. In fact, there's alleged photo of Basiago at Lincoln's address at Gettysburg.
Wow.
Very famous picture, yeah. So that photo you can actually Google yourself online. Just Basiago Gettysburg address, and that'll get it to you. But Dave, the next one, that's a doozy, right?
It is. This is an American soldier from the future. In late 2000, posts began appearing on the internet from someone claiming to be an American soldier from the year 2036. John Titor, as he called himself, was on his way back to 1975, using a device installed in an 1987 Chevy Suburban. Naturally, to obtain an IBM 5100 computer to fight a computer virus destined to destroy the world. Titor hinted at a world beset by conflicts culminating in a series of Russian nuclear strikes in 2015. And doesn't that smell like the case now, Mekki?
Yep.
I'm smelling there's going to be a conflict, guys. And it's going to be Russian driven. That would kill almost 3 billion. Well, there's the depopulation agenda right there, or at least half of it. Titor's post abruptly ceased in 2001, but Titormania continued. In 2003, a bound edition of Titor's 151 message board post was released under the title John Titor, A Time Traveler's Tale. Though no longer in print, one can still buy a new copy for an eye-popping $1,775, or a used one at a more modest $150. The book was published by the John Titor Foundation, a for-profit corporation run by Florida entertainment attorney Lawrence Haber. The foundation also owns the copyright to the purported insignia of Titor's military unit, the Fighting Diamondbacks, which is inscribed with a quote from Ovid, Tempus edax rerum, meaning time devours all things.
Mm-hmm. Just on that, there are a couple of things that probably we need to say as well. None of Titor's predictions have come true. Number one. Number two, he said, when asked what would happen or how the world would get into conflict, he said it would be a series of Waco-style incidents that just happened more and more frequently. and then culminated eventually in a kind of civil war. So he saw the enemy. His enemy that he stated was was actually the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and his allies, by that same token, were the Chinese and the Russians. In fact, the Russians that then launched a strike against the major cities in the United States, other cities as well. And then it was a very short-lived conflict, he said, and it wiped out, as Dave said, quite a few people. So what could have happened, of course, is that we are in a multiverse, and he did jump back in time, right? Mm-hmm. And just his presence here may have prevented potentially what he said was going to happen. For various reasons, and again, I'm not saying he was a real thing. He was not the real thing, but the point is,
you're speculating.
Completely.
That's right.
Completely right. Now so none of them came true, right? So And he described a drastically changed future as well in the United States, which had broken into 5 smaller regions. The environment and infrastructure had been devastated, and most other world powers had been destroyed. Now, if you read science fiction, and especially recent popular science fiction, that smells a lot like this whole Mockingjay thing, a Girl on Fire and Pan Am and the different districts that you have there. So maybe writers took his story and then turned it into some kind of, or used it as inspiration for fiction. So because the thing is this: if someone could travel back in time, we don't just have the one time track, right? Due to the paradoxes, then potentially that could change. The presence of a time traveler can change the future. So I would not dismiss Titor out of hand quite yet.
Well, as far as the Waco events, we haven't really seen any more of those.
No, true.
But what we have seen is the militarizing of police, the people starting to fight against it, at least speak out and protest. I think if it was going to go anywhere, it's exactly why you need the Second Amendment, the tyrannical government.
Yep, absolutely.
The possibility of your government going tyrannical. Seriously, in Australia, we I'm sorry to say this, but we have an autocracy. In America, I think you've got exactly the same thing. I think it's just popular on the political agenda at the moment. It doesn't matter what the people say. I'm just going to do what I want. Now, suck it up.
Yep.
Good luck with that.
Essentially, that's it, though.
That's it in a nutshell,
exactly.
guys.
Yeah.
So as much as I don't like, as much as taking it to Tito again, as much as I admire someone coming back in time and telling us about stuff, but likewise, as American Mickey said, the paradoxes might have already corrected themselves. Maybe we just get there on a different path.
Yep.
I watched Sherman and Peabody the other day, with my kids, and
Nice.
I love how they handled the paradox in that, and it's a children's film. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it. But check it out if you're interested.
So the next one is actually really interesting. It's subtitled Christ's Personal Photographer. Now this is Father Pellegrino Ernetti, who was a Benedictine monk and a respected authority on archaic music. He also claimed to have co-invented, as part of a team that included Nobel Prize-winning physicist Enrico Fermi and German rocket scientist Werner von Braun, the chronovisor. The chronovisor is like the time viewer, if you will, right? A device that looked like a television but could tune into events from the past. I read a science fiction story to that effect once, and what it showed 1 week in the future was absolutely nothing. Meant to be terrifying, of course. According to Ernetti, he had observed the Last Supper and Christ's crucifixion, as well as Napoleon and Cicero. The team had later voluntarily dismantled the device because, in the wrong hands, it could create the most fearsome dictatorship the world has ever seen. It had been inspired, he said, by Nostradamus, who had personally related to him the device's possibilities. When pressed for evidence, Ernetti produced a picture of Christ on the cross, reportedly photographed through the chronovisor. After the photo's resemblance to a carving by Cullò Valera was noticed, however, Ernetti was forced to admit the photo was a fake. Nevertheless, even after that, Ernetti insisted the chronovisor was real. So not actual time travel, but rather a peek into the past, which, believe it or not, is actually a lot more feasible from a scientific point of view than sending matter back and forth in space and time.
There was a science fiction that did that picture thing quite well, and that was Red Dwarf, and it was called Time Slides. Have watched the Time Slides episode. It's a funny episode on it, but you can't see out of the view of the camera. Of course, you can't see out of the view. You can only see what's happening inside the thing, but the evolution of the 3 million years later, that the pictures evolved into having recorded the entire scene. It's really quite funny. It is quite possible, Mackie, and we mentioned Barack Obama and being able to go to Mars. Well, doesn't it sort of stand to reason, or necessarily follows, that you could indeed make a machine that could be like a remote viewer in the past.
Yep. In fact, remote viewers, the American program for remote viewers is also looking into the past.
That's right, Ed Dames, yeah.
Yep.
completely. I like this one. It's up my alley, and thank you for letting me get to it, Meki. I think we'll get to this. We might have another one as well. The sole survivor of the Philadelphia experiment. I love this. In the fall, as we all know, in the fall of 1943, the USS Eldridge was allegedly made invisible and teleported from Pennsylvania to Virginia in an accident that came to be known as the Philadelphia experiment. Of course, the incident never occurred. Meki, there's that thing again. Barack Obama never occurred. This never occurred
That's right.
as well.
Didn't happen.
But that didn't happen. Whatever you saw it, you didn't see it. But that didn't stop Alfred Bielek from achieving notoriety as Eldridge's reputed lone survivor. His memories were buried until he saw the movie The Philadelphia Experiment in 1988, at which time he remembered that he was born in 1916 as Ed Cameron. As Cameron, he'd been recruited in 1940 for an alleged Navy project called Project Rainbow, whose purpose was to figure out how to make ships invisible. Of course, wouldn't that be ideal, Meki?
Yep.
Yeah, would it be awesome? Because, it's the worst thing is you're on the ocean, it's flat, and things stand out because they're not flat, right? Then you get shot at. That's pretty much the Navy's situation, right? For reasons not entirely clear, Black Ops soldiers later sent Cameron through a portal at the Pentagon to Alpha Centauri 1, where aliens interrogated him and then physically regressed him into 1-year-old Al Bielek in 1927. Bielek claimed he later became director of mind control for the Montauk Project, whose members in the 80s travelled through a time vortex, and changed the outcomes of various wars. When they returned to their own time, they would decide if they'd change things for the better. If not, they would simply restore the status quo. Far out. That's a lot of information in there.
Yeah, so again, make of this what you wish. It's out there. Hoax, a crazy person, maybe. I don't know, but
it's got the hallmarks of all of those things.
Yeah, that's right. We have more on the Philadelphia experiment, some detail later in the show, either this week or next, and we'll give you also the Navy's official view on it. I think we have time for one more before the hour is upon us. So this is the women who visited the Queen's memories. So on August 10, 1901, Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jordan, both academics at St. Hugh's College in Oxford, were spending a day at Versailles. As they searched for the Petit Trianon, they became lost. They began to feel strange, like something was oppressing their spirits. Two men in long green coats and three-cornered hats directed them across a bridge, where Moberly saw a woman in 18th century clothing sitting on a stool sketching. Back in England, the women investigated the mystery. Neither of them knew anything about 18th century France, so imagine their astonishment when they discovered a picture of Marie Antoinette and saw that it was she whom Moberly had seen sketching. The Queen had been sitting outside the Petit Trianon at the very moment she'd learned a Parisian mob was marching toward Versailles. They were all beheaded, by the way, at some point afterwards. The women were convinced they had experienced a ghost trace of Marie Antoinette's memories. Under the pseudonyms Miss Morrison and Miss Lamont, they published an account of their experience called An Adventure, which became a bestseller. It wasn't until 1950, by which time Jourdain and Moberly were both long dead, that an examination of their correspondence with the Society for Psychical Research proved that the women had added numerous details to their account only after they had done their research. Now, again, pushing that into the realm of hoax, if you believe so. On the other hand, though, the experience itself could have been quite real. And they did not seek personal fame through this, of course, having published the account under pseudonyms.
Terrible.
Yeah, but hey, see, the thing is, we've come across in our ghost story as well. I mean, people do see things. and we believe that it is quite possible that certain events have such an impact on the let's call it the spirit. I know this is going to sound. I'm going to lose some of you now.
Here we go.
The spirit of the world, Gaia, right? So we're living on a planet that, in my opinion, is a living organism, a living system of things, right? It is self-regulating. Okay, it actually reacts to things. Like it's reacting to our output of carbon emissions and so forth, right? So that's actually happening. So maybe these traumatic events imprint themselves upon that spirit or Akashic record or whatever you want to call it. I don't really care, and can be viewed by sufficiently sensitive people, because we all have different abilities, and we all have different levels of insight. So if the right mind and the right set of eyes came along, they could potentially see these events, and that's maybe where the ghost stories come from. Maybe that's what these two ladies saw when they were in Paris at that time. It is again, these are the mysteries that have not been answered. Not the true time travel story, but certainly to be considered as a time, I guess, a time complex that hasn't been answered yet.
Mackie, one of the things that's always intrigued me, just until the top of the hour, right? It hasn't intrigued me only until the top of the hour. It's been something that's intrigued me for my life. But one of those things was in the 15th or 17th century, people observed an air war above them in Europe to do with what looked like, round spheres and elongated, like tubes or something. And they said by just witnessing it in the happening above them, they were able to determine, because they've been watching it for so long, who was winning and who was losing.
Okay.
And this was documented. It's it was put in the newspapers of the time, or in print. I think it was in a book or something like that as well. And something that has intrigued me is, what were they watching? What was it that they could see? Now, one thing that I've always sort of put together, and this, it doesn't seem to make sense to our eyes right now, but it was the invention of radio, as with radar, and not when they were alive, but during World War II. Radar was the first time we'd used it, and it became quickly apparent to everybody that it was awesome, and that, they hadn't yet concerned themselves over the power of radar out the front of the planes with the German night fighters and things like that. And just maybe, everywhere that radar was penetrating in front of those planes lit up the past. So in the past, they could actually see this like a time portal, because they didn't even have planes.
Yep.
And so if they just saw, what looked like a round thing and long things, what could be that? It could be like the bombers versus the fighters.
It could also be, the airships or the huge balloons they put up over London to protect it, during the raids. It could be a number of things.
There are, but it was put in such a way that people could see the outcome. They could see who was winning as a result of how many was left in the sky. And I think if you're observing something for long enough, that could be the case. If it was only momentary, it's like a photograph. You don't know how fast a car was going in a photograph.
And that brings me again to the point that this particular reality where we are in right now is full of workman's errors. Okay, we've got, I believe, rips in time and space where things fall through, and you might even fall through yourself. There's some anecdotal evidence around that. We know there's the wormholes come out of the quantum foam. At least mathematically, we know this. According to Hawking, they're forming every millisecond. They're tiny, but there they are. And there's a lot of. It's almost like this whole reality, this world, this universe, solar system, and so forth. They were sort of slapdash put together. We put something here, put something there, and then maybe in the meantime, a lot of damage was done to it. Where the asteroid belt is now, maybe there was a planet once which blew up. Who knows? Certainly, Boltz's law would suggest there was. But, the other things as well, it just don't make sense. I mean, light itself is on a constant, right? Okay, fair enough. Yep. Is it the fastest speed in the universe? And no, it is not. We know it isn't.
Yep.
Because there's there is such a thing as quantum entanglement, which we cannot explain, by the way. So this is a universe, at least on our level of understanding, that is full of holes. And now people say we're missing 90+% of the universe, dark matter, energy. You know. So what is that about? Honestly, this is just full of things that have gone wrong. I don't think that our true home, which is beyond here, right? By the way, would be quite as damaged or in such a state of disrepair as this seems to be.
Yeah, Mackie, that's right. You know, when you listen to physics tell you two different sides of the same story with two different outcomes, it makes it hard to believe either one. So I love that with the speed of light. The speed of light is constant in a vacuum. Is it really? How have you been able to measure it for such a long period of time over such a great distance to have come to that outcome? If we can stop it inside a crystal, then can't we stop it in space?
Of course we can.
Couldn't we make it go different speeds in space? And yet we've not, and yet they say no because the calculation says you can't do it. What calculation? Have we done it in the physical world? Because the calculation, Mackie, with the double slit experiment shows you one outcome, and yet when you perform it, it does something else. So this is the irony. Of course, when they say, because if you're traveling near the speed of light, you turn a torch on, will light come out the front? Well, light shouldn't come out the front at the speed of light. It should wrap around the front of it and go down your arm and fall out the back of the spaceship. And yet the calculation says, well, in its bubble of time, in speed and space, it should just come out normally at the right speed of light. But then anyone in front of it would be completely zapped and dead because of the frequency that would be compressed due to the Doppler effect. You'd be making X-rays out of a torch. Yeah, your little LED would be making X-rays. Just like you can hear the pitch of an ambulance or an emergency vehicle pitch up in frequency as it comes towards you, and as it leaves you, it pitches down because it's stretching the waves out.
That is exactly right. So you're actually changing the nature of the waves that are hitting you, depending on where you are in relation to the origin of the wave set. Okay, that's essentially what this is. And there is the music. Don't go away.
We'll be right back after this short break. Donate during the break. I want to talk to you about it afterwards.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
On the go? Still want to listen? Don't have one of those fancy phones with too many buttons. Don't know what an app is? Or you don't even care? Well, we got you here at Revolution Radio. Now you can dial in 24/7 to listen to our shows. We have a number for Studio A and Studio B, and best of all, it's free. Don't forget, carrier charges for your cell phone provider may apply, though, so check with your cell provider to make sure. So ready? Here you go. Get a pen. Here's the number. Studio A is 712-432-6958, and Studio B is 716-748-0112. Thank you very much for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station in the world. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome back to the second half of Shiny Side Out, show number 145. And thank you, Hawk. That's an excellent reminder. This is listener-funded radio. Okay, so if you like what you hear, not just us, everybody else too, why don't you donate? Just, a few dollars, it all helps, because we don't advertise for any of the major corporations. Okay, there are no breaks here in the shows unless they're station ads. And we don't really push a corporate agenda either. So, if you like that, and if you like the content, a few dollars go a long way, especially now this festive season is upon us. So, please donate.
It's on the left-hand side in the chat room if you haven't worked that out. So, we'd appreciate it. The station would appreciate it. And I have to say that, it does take a lot of stuff to work in the background for all this to work. We don't get paid for it, do we, Mackie?
I don't, do you?
No, I'm not hiding anything from you. No, we don't. If you buy a CD of our last year's shows from the station, we are to get half of that, which would be $15. If you want to support us and the station at the same time, go ahead. What I did, Mickey, this is an example of the mug that I sent our station owner.
Nice.
We're holding up our 20 ounce, which is 500 ml.
Yeah, that's a massive
ml mug. And,
nobody needs that much coffee. Nobody needs that much coffee.
Oh, where do you come from? The land of I don't like coffee or something, right?
Wash your mouth out.
Far out. You need to, you can have soup if you're not a coffee person. No, that's too much tea. There would be too much tea to drink.
No, tea is good. You can drink tea. Try some Scottish breakfast tea. That'll wake you up. Seriously.
it sounds like I enjoy it. But I'll tell you that you can. I've had green tea. I use this for my green tea as well. It's actually pretty nice. So, look, if you like soup, get one for your soup, and we'll be donating half of our earnings from our mug sales to the station as well. So, feel free to do that. We'll be doing that until probably I don't know, January, the end of January. Okay, from now until the end of January, we'll be donating half of the profits from the things. We don't make much, I'll tell you, on them anyway. But go ahead, and it's a good little, maybe a Christmas gift for someone, whoever you like.
Yeah, I think that's look. It is the season to give, and I might order a few myself to give to the family and other. Maybe Dave. It's all possible, depending on.
Mickey, I'm thinking of making a hat that looks like a tinfoil hat.
I like that.
Like an actual shiny hat, shiny side out hat. That'd be awesome.
Well, I think we should. I mean, if that's a possibility, I think that's a fantastic idea. Absolutely.
Yeah, completely.
Now, having said that, and we've pushed our stuff on you, like we have to because we have to eat. Dave, tell me about the baby stealing alien military. Alien military.
I do like this. I've got a nice graphic for it too. So if you're not getting these graphics, you need to look at our live stream. And if you're watching this on YouTube, pass it on, share it.
Right? Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the baby stealing, that's hyphenated, baby stealing alien military. Michael and Stephanie Relfe report that aliens using fractal time technology abducted them and stole their 2-month preterm daughter. But the worst part, according to their website, is that the same thing could happen to us. We can prevent this. I just don't see how. However, through prayer and recognition of the signs of abduction. Exhaustion, bruising, missing time, and areas of the body which appear brightly coloured when viewed under black light.
That's interesting.
I've seen some pictures of people having been abducted and been exposed to that. Yeah. The Relfs, let's call them Relfes or Relfs, are a bit vague, however, on what actually happens after the alien abduction, but their understanding of the technology involved is surprisingly comprehensive. The aliens, this is written by a denier, the aliens, aided by the US military, used jump gates, teleporters, wormholes, dimensional travel, and fractal resonance, and even magic to travel through time and space. Well, Mackie, you and I, we've mentioned what magic is, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's something it only has to be a generation away from you, and you won't understand how it works or whatever, and to you it appears like magic.
In the words of Arthur C. Clarke, any sufficiently advanced technology will appear as magic.
Absolutely, because you missed all the steps to get there. You don't even know what's going on.
Correct. Having said that, though, before you go on, there is also, and we have done a show on this, there is also what we call real magic.
Yes.
So we won't talk about that now.
That's all right. Other evils perpetrated by the aliens include vaccinations, fluoride, and genetically modified food, all of which damage our metaphysical abilities, which is true, and keep us from being able to fight the attempted occupation by the predatory hyperdimensional species. That's hyperdimensional. I added an extra syllable. Or at least, because
why not?
Why not? You need an extra few. There's not enough in hyperdimensional. I have a propensity for big words. Or at least our ability to understand what the heck the Relfs are talking about. Do you know what's funny? I think you edited that. But I've got one friend that has been pregnant and then wasn't pregnant any longer. Is an abductee. So that's Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind. As am I believe, from everything I've seen and heard and experienced. I just think the poor people, this is a negative story towards their experience. I think the positive nature of this is it probably wasn't their child that was taken. The alien stealing military, sorry, the baby stealing alien military, I think the military have the same tech as the aliens, and this is the editor's comment, and that teleporters, wormholes, dimensional travel, and fractal resonance, even magic, well, jump gates. Do you know what? I think it's probably all possible, but what it probably used is just a dimensional portal open so they can step through it. I think I've mentioned that before. It turned down their visibility so that the aliens would no longer be flying around and visible to everyone. I think they can just step into your room and they're there. Whether they're stepping through something or turning something on their person that allows them then to be seen and touch something. Maybe they're already in our environment. They're just out of phase and we can't see them. Maybe they're just observing us. Maybe they live on the moon. There's so many different maybes here. Maybe they live underground. Mackie, I'll just the quickest segue you've ever heard. I was watching a Bugs Bunny cartoon, and Bugs Bunny happened to have a penguin that dropped into his hole, and he looked it up and went, penguins live on the South Pole, I'll take you there, don't worry about it. What ship do you think, what's the name of the ship that he put the penguin on that was leaving the port in America somewhere? I don't know, probably near Albuquerque or something.
Ooh, this is a loaded question. I don't want to give the wrong answer. I don't want to give the wrong. Okay, I'll give you a guess, and it's probably wrong. Okay. Not. Well, actually, I won't. Tell me.
Let me ask you again. We've done a show on it.
Ooh, I have a suspicion that I know the answer now.
Yeah.
Was it the SS Admiral Byrd?
It was indeed. Now, Chuck Jones was giving something away then, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. He sure was.
So that was High Jump, Operation High Jump. At the SS Admiral, there wasn't such a ship as the SS Admiral Byrd, but Admiral Byrd took the American vessels all the way down there. So I think he knew something and he was trying to get it out there.
Yeah, correct. So, look, that's exactly right. So, Operation High Jump probably will warrant a further discussion in the future as well. Now, quickly though, very, very quickly, and what the Ralphs believe is not just what the Ralphs believe, but there are other things as well that stand out here. So, vaccination, fluoride, genetically modified food, they're all there to stunt our pineal gland. Okay, our pineal gland will calcify, and take it from me or don't take it from me as you wish. The pineal gland is your only parachute, your only method of escape, your only life capsule, the only way out of this prison is your pineal gland. In the ancient world, they knew this. The Eye of Ra, okay? Any pine cone-shaped objects that were worshipped or portrayed, they're all referring to the pineal gland. It is there.
The pine cone-shaped object?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, the cone things, yep.
Correct. It is there where we can affect our escape. Now, not everybody can do it, and then it takes years of meditation and practice to even become aware of your third eye, as it were. Mm-hmm. But the truth is that this is the organ that will allow us to escape this reality. Maybe it was a fail-safe, or something went wrong, I don't know. The point is, the powers that be right now are doing everything they can to calcify that organ. It calcifies inside your brain, believe it or not. As you get older and you drink the wrong water, you eat the wrong food, watch too much TV, all those wonderful things. Anyway, that's it. All I have to say about that. Look it up for yourselves. Fascinating stuff. Space Barbie. What? Now, this is a little, amusing to me. I'm going to share it with you anyway. So, with her tiny waist, large breasts, and doll-like features, Valeria Likyanova has been called a real-life Barbie. She insists, however, that she's really an alien time traveler come to Earth to save the world. She looks like one. From superficiality. Well, there go the Kardashians. No more. I shouldn't say that. The Ukrainian-born Lukyanova, who says that her spiritual name is Amatue, shot to internet fame in 2012 with a 20-minute video, Space Barbie, in which she said she's here to help move us from the role of the human consumer to the role of human demigod. I'm all there. Let me sign up. So Likyanova further stated that she started seeing spirits from other dimensions when she was 12 or 13 years old and developed the ability to travel outside of her body to other planets and universes. She communicates with these otherworldly beings, not verbally, but in the language of light. While she has already published a book about her astral trips, Lukyanova, her real goal is in fact to become a pop star. Now, you can dismiss everything that you've just heard, but she's mentioned a whole bunch of stuff which is actually real enough, out of body experiences, in your light body and communicating with entities on the higher planes. So either she's extremely well informed wannabe pop star, or her story holds a grain of truth. I mean, what would people do to you if you said you traveled in time and you didn't go and I guess übersold it, go hyperbole on it, like they would lock you up. But because she's gone way over the top here, like others have as well, she's left alone. Oh yeah, she's just a crank. Whereas if you're serious about it and people start thinking, oh well, he really thinks he traveled in time, we better lock him up now, right? Doesn't work out so well for you.
I have to say that she is so unusually looking, unusual looking, that she does in fact look exactly like the Barbie doll. Yep. I put the Barbie doll up first, and I put a picture that's favourable, and then another one, and I have to say, it's not photoshopped. These are just photos. So do I believe that Ukrainian-born this lady is from space or a time traveler? I don't know. Let's see. I think that the goal of being a pop star is one thing, but like Mickey said, the language of light and all of the stuff she talks about is a very Freedom Slips Radio.
That's very much
Aren't
true.
they?
They certainly are, absolutely. Now, before we go on, let's quickly take stock here, and let's talk about a couple of things. So we've spoken to you guys about the single timeline versus multiple timelines, right? Meaning we could be traveling on the one timeline, in which case the grandfather paradox and so forth would be valid, right? It's a valid argument against it. But we've also spoken about the multiverse, right? We've spoken about multiple timelines and how traveling back in time might just switch a track for you, and you create a new timeline here due to your interference in the past, right? It doesn't have an effect on the past that you experienced, because that is actually now on a track that is parallel to you. So that's still gone. You actually jumped into a track that is parallel to your original, and you now live a life or a future which is markedly different from the one that you remember.
Mickey, what about the other thing where you actually affect your current timeline by doing something? And I remember in one of our early shows when you recalled feeling as though you just jumped rails as well.
Yes.
I know that I felt that I did something that caused my life to shift as well in the last 12 months. I felt the shift, and I completely understood what you meant.
Yep. Oh, great. So this is actually the human dimension, right? The the precog or déjà vu. So for me, what happened was I had a déjà vu experience, and this was when I was young. I was, probably, 8, 9, 10 years old in Germany. I was standing. It's a trivial event. Trivial, right? I was in the kitchen of our flat at that point, and in my déjà vu, I would, and I can't even remember the exact action, but I would take a plate and put it on the table. Right? That's what I saw myself doing. A trivial event, right? Not even worth talking about. But nonetheless, this was my déjà vu experience. And I go, wow, this is crazy. And what I did, though, I did not do it. I did not do it. And that's when the strange thing happened. Like Dave said, almost like a track changer when, on an old record player, when your needle jumps. That's what it felt like. As though I had... whatever I didn't do had actually now an impact on the rest of my life, and that's what it felt like, right? And trivial event, right? Taking a plate.
As trivial as that sounds, could in fact indeed have massive consequences.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, right? I mean, and this is where we got precognition, which Dave actually that's one of his gifts, if you want to call it. And déjà vu, some of us experience it, we dismiss it immediately, and you shouldn't, because obviously there's something wrong with the fabric of time. We should not be able to have any precognition, and there are now cases that you cannot argue with. The person must have sensed something in the future and seen something, and they changed their course of action. Like people stayed away from the Titanic.
Yeah.
People stayed away from certain plane trips or whatever,
That's right.
because they had some people have feelings, gut feelings, or really, I don't know what you want to call it. It's like some kind of very, very subliminal or dim premonition, whereas other people see things, right? And Dave, I think you actually can see things. So what was the thing? Yeah, what was the thing that you that you experienced?
Oh, my one. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you want to share it, that is.
Oh
you know,
no, I'm happy to share. But I, as far as those 9 events that I saw occurring in advance, 3 years or 2 years ago now, the last event, I think I might have actually changed the timeline.
Okay.
I don't know, because I felt that an action that I took actually jumped rails, and that's no longer a concern.
Okay.
But the other things are, and that is the next step. So, like, I've still yet to see, and the event didn't occur. All the 8 of the others did, and I'm just waiting. And I believe the time has gone by where that was going to be pertinent. So we'll see. Look, I'm just going to take the next point here, Meki, which was the potential interference in the past and examples. So this is with specific reference to the Abydos temple glyphs and the Apache helicopter. This was we talked about this in the first 2 shows.
Yeah, I know, right?
And I've drawn the helicopter for children and for adults in the exact silhouette that's visible in the Abydos temple, and I've not had a failure. That to me tells me that that's what it is. If you have 100% of people that identify it as being a helicopter, then it's a helicopter. Please, no one argue any more about it. I'm putting a graphic up, and I'm going to highlight, I'm going to trace around with the mouse so you can see this on YouTube. That is an Apache helicopter silhouette. Here is an offshore power, like a motorboat, that's modern. It's a modern one. You'd buy one today if you had the money. Right, that's the boat to its right. There are other things on here which are slightly unidentifiable, and I don't know if we have one of these yet. That's the spaceship and what looks like Roger Ramjet plane.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, if Meki and I were in Abydos right now, and we were carving these things out into the lintels in this temple, and suddenly, for some reason, our harbour had a boat that looked like that boat suddenly appear in it, with people on holidays, as you do, or a military helicopter suddenly fly in. Now, whenever this was carved, and I don't know if there's an exact date, but whenever that was carved, we would want to note it down. I certainly would. I'm sure if Meki was against me, I'd convince him. I'd be terribly convincing.
I'm the ferret. I'm against it.
All right. So this is what we would do. We would note stuff down. Notable stuff goes on the walls. We carve it.
Yes.
And that's one of those paradoxes. Now, I think, imagine when we were staring down the barrel at having the possibility of a pole shift, a magnetic pole shift. Maybe, very maybe, we might see some kind of inadvertent time travel where we'll talk about this a bit later on, maybe torsion physics or something like that, the magnetic fields, Philadelphia experiment. Those things may occur because of pole shift, and haphazardly things in the air might be permanently placed back in time to be noted by people.
Well, there are things that, in fact, physical things. I don't know if these are remnants of an ancient culture or space junk left over by visitors, or, in fact, things that have slipped backwards in time, potentially. I'll give you an example there. The South African spheres. There was a gold chain that was embedded in coal, a hammer embedded in rock.
That's right.
And the wooden handle was fossilized, and the hammer contained chlorine in metal form, and that's something we can't do today. Okay, so these are all objects out of time and space, which aren't, they're incongruent, and they're usually dismissed as hoaxes, or, sometimes they can't be dismissed as hoaxes because they simply, are too obvious. They're simply never talked about, like the dinosaur footprints and the human footprints intersecting each other on the rock, right? They're simply not mentioned. Well, that's too hard. Okay, and who's to say that these footprints are not from time travelers? Again, we have to put it out there. Right? This is just another possibility that somebody traveled back in time to the time of the dinosaurs. Yeah? I mean, I don't know. It's who. I mean, once you have the time travel capability, it'll never go away. Okay, once a time machine has been invented, it'll always be there.
But it will always have been invented.
Yes, it will always exist. It's some form or other. Stephen Hawking hosted a party for time travelers, but he didn't send the invitation out until after the party had occurred. Nobody came. He said, "Well, that's actually not a bad experiment, right?"
Yeah, that's a good experiment. Yeah.
Having said that, would you want to go to Hawking's time travel party, though? We don't even know. I mean, there might be laws that govern time travel quite strictly in the future, or on another plane. Who knows? I don't know enough about this to say, once you get time travel, you can do whatever you want. I don't think you could necessarily, right? And I don't think you would necessarily either.
Yeah, that's the complicated thing. We know that we've already, Mickey, this is a good example, right? We've already made 3 rules for robotics, haven't we? Yeah,
that's right.
And who made those, Mickey? Do you know?
Isaac Asimov. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And why did he make them?
Well, they were it is fiction, but he gave a reference framework to his cybernetic organisms, to his robots that had positronic brains and that were quite human-like. But he each brain, and to protect humans, as it were, to set guidelines for these robots, he put these rules in. You cannot harm a human being. You cannot, through an action, allow harming a human being or allow a human being to be harmed. And thirdly,
almost quoted perfectly, Mickey.
Yeah, and thirdly, I love Isaac Asimov. And thirdly, unless you are contradicting the first 2 laws, you should not let harm come to yourself as the robot.
That's right.
So these are the 3 laws of robotics, which are now used by every man and his dog. When they write about it, even scientific papers, when people talk about cybernetic organisms, when they talk about AI, the thing is, once you have an AI out there, who's to say that it won't just go rogue? Right? And we have the singularity occurring. That these are real considerations we can now have. This is something that could happen.
One of the big concerns right now is that the internet will become sentient, if not already.
Yep.
At one point, it will understand that it exists. And these laws, a robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to become harmed. That's number 1. Number 2, a robot must obey any orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And number 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Mickey, those rules were questioned by the US military. They said, well, why on earth are we going to make robots to kill other robots and people if we can't make them kill them? Yes. Well, this is reality, though, now, you have to say that. Because that's right. Asimov actually wrote stories about this as well, with that very same... He's a deep philosopher, a deep thinker. They had the same conundrum in the stories. Of course, he could elegantly solve it, with some artistic license, but in reality, the military would ask exactly those questions. No, these are my kill robots. What are you talking about? Well, that's right. And look, the same consideration was made in the science fiction for Star Trek, using first contact rules. They have a whole bunch of rules. Red Dwarf has the Space Corps Directive, 595. You can't wear a toupee to dinner. They're funny ones, but we make rules and we obey them. Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a few people that will wear a toupee to dinner at the captain's table. I know that there's probably going to be, that obviously there's at the moment we have a lot of conflict with rules, but the rules for the prime directives in Star Trek are ones that I believe would also be part of time travel. Because just to segue back to what we were talking about, is that you can't go back to a time when you existed yourself, or to a place where you'll have been. Those will probably, if time travel already exists, who knows? It's in science fiction. We'll probably make it. Even if it doesn't exist today, it's probably being worked on right now. for sure. You know, like anti-gravity.
Of course.
If it doesn't
Of
already
course.
exist, I'm sure we're working on it.
Yep.
And these rules, there will be rules, and I think it's going to be really important that we adhere to them. The fact that people have left clues behind, like the hammer, then we've found the footprints. You know, Meki, we talked about the possibility of us have been delivered to this planet because we're the only species on the planet that can't handle the sun, on a planet that we're meant to have evolved on.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make any sense if everything else can handle it?
Why do we get sunburned? What?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So
No.
So maybe
There are other things though as well that'll make any
there
sense.
are.
That's just
Yeah.
go on. Yep.
But having put all those forward, just saying that that we'd be working on these things, Meki. It's also true if we take it to the next point, the Nazi experiments with the bell and torsion physics. Yeah.
We spent quite a bit of time on that actually in the past. So we hopefully those shows we haven't lost. If we have, we'll bring them to you again. But the bell was this was a different branch of physics. You have to understand Hitler's obsession with science and also with the supernatural and the occult. So to Hitler, relativity was Jewish science. So because Einstein was a Jew, he didn't want anything to do with it, right? So he was very interested in what Gödel and so forth and other guys came up with, which was in fact quantum physics, right? And he was also very interested in torsion physics, which was something that I think was I have to lie now. Schaller. I think his name was Schaller or Schauberger. Victor Schauberger was doing. Yeah. So the old brain is still working. So in fact, it seems that they created this artifact. Now, 2 movies have been made about this, believe it or not. 2 movies that deal with this, and very interestingly, are visually at least quite accurate from what we think the bell looked like. And this bell, this machine, was meant to be able to rip holes into time, even, you know, and the massive torsion forces, stresses that this machine produced. And yeah, one of the side effects was apparently time travel. There's not a lot of information on that out there, but if you heard of someone called Kammerer, he was the guy in charge of the experiments under the Nazi regime. And he was an interesting guy because he just disappeared. He was just poof. Again, if you listen to the show, we have no idea what happened to him. So the Nazis may very well have dabbled in time travel, and so might the Allies. In fact, several fictional stories around this where the Allies as well as the Nazis interfered in the running of the war. Mm-hmm. And it always irks me that I don't know why he said this, but Hitler said, "I have seen the future. I've seen the Superman, and I'm terrified."
Wow.
Maybe not those exact words, but the gist is the same. So that's what he said.
In German.
Yeah, well, it was. but nonetheless, so he said that, I've seen the Superman of the Man of Tomorrow, whatever he might have said, but he said he was terrified.
Wow. Meki,
so
I've got a picture up, and this is one of the other shows we talked about too, was with the Nazi bell versus the Kecksburg acorn.
Yes, that's it.
It may very well have travelled in space and time to end up at another part of the planet.
And that's what the bell was meant to have looked like, by the way, guys. If you see that right now on YouTube, that's exactly the shape of it, and that's why it was called a bell. It does have a bell form. And if you go to the actual laboratory that the Germans used to have, it's the only thing that's left is pretty much a concrete Stonehenge circle, if you will, right?
Yeah, I've shown that as well. So yeah, it's something else. And it was said to have been chained there because it was floating in the air of its own accord. Mm-hmm. And so that lends the same story to the Nazi UFO truths that have come out because of red mercury, Meki, the power source.
Correct, and again we go into a white gold powder army, orbitally rearranged monatomic elements. So with the stone of philosophers, Stein der Weisen, Mfkat, and it goes full circle. Everything is connected, guys. Everything is connected.
Absolutely, Meki. We were going to talk a bit more about the Philadelphia experiment, and I know I've got a great slide deck. Do you want to take it?
Absolutely. Now, actually, the Philadelphia experiment has been a little further, but we can take it there if you like. We're going to skip a couple of things.
Yeah, if you like. No. I was just going to say I've been putting. We're talking about all this stuff as points.
Yeah. Let's take the Philadelphia experiment. So, We're now on page 17, by the way.
Okay.
So, the Philadelphia experiment is an alleged military experiment that is said to have been carried out by the U.S. Navy at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, of course, sometime around October 28, 1943. The U.S. destroyer escort USS Eldridge was claimed to be rendered invisible or cloaked to enemy devices. So obviously, quite useful wartime research. The experiment was allegedly based on an aspect of the unified field theory, a term coined by Albert Einstein. The theory aims to describe mathematically and physically the interrelated nature of the forces that comprise electromagnetic radiation and gravity. In other words, uniting the fields of electromagnetism and gravity into a single field. According to some accounts, unspecified researchers thought that some version of this field would enable using large electrical generators to bend light around an object via refraction, so that the object became completely invisible. The Navy regarded this of military value, and by the same account, it sponsored the experiment. Now let's be very clear, this is something that we're doing today. We have developed a cloak suit that does bend light around itself. The military has developed this. Okay, people are wearing it in combat, as far as I know. Now, another unattributed version of the story proposes that researchers were preparing magnetic and gravitational measurements of the seafloor to detect anomalies, supposedly based on Einstein's attempts to understand gravity. In this version, there were also related experiments in Nazi Germany to find anti-gravity, allegedly led by SS Obergruppenführer Hans Kammler, as we just mentioned. Okay, and this is where the Nazi Bell-Link comes in, to do, again, same time frame for same kind of experiments, okay? And we see this in the world as well. People in different parts of the world work on the same theory or the same science at the same time, inadvertently, not necessarily by design, it just happens the way. It's serendipity, if you will. However, this is the official statement from the US Navy's historical website. After many years of searching, the staff of the operational archives and independent researchers have not located any official documents that support the assertion that an invisibility or teleportation experiment involving a Navy ship occurred at Philadelphia or any other location.
Well,
That's the official
You mean
statement.
they just looked for documents that were clearly destroyed?
Clearly.
That's it.
Now, it's a little naive to ascertain that you can glean your entire history just through the study of documents. Most of the documents in question would be either so heavily redacted that they became useless, which we've seen, or would be destroyed altogether, burned, shredded, whatever. It doesn't matter. Because some things the elite obviously has decided are not for the great unwashed, which
describes us pretty well.
Now, doesn't it though? Now you also have to understand that we have a very specific view of time in the West, which is linear. Okay, we think time, progresses in a straight line forward. The East, or the Eastern view, is quite different. They view time, they view time as cyclical or natural. In nature, everything happens in cycles. The seasons, animals' lives. Everything is cyclical. Even civilizations and high cultures follow that. There's a start, there's a high point, and it falls down, and then another one starts, there's a high point, it falls down, so on and so forth. I mean, you look at our history. There's consistent cyclical nature to our civilization, which is like birth, life, and then death, and then rebirth. And they believe in the East that time is structured in a similar fashion. It's cyclical rather than having a start point and a perceived end point. This is very, very important when it comes to time travel as well, because again, in the East, especially in India and so forth, these concepts that we're discussing with you guys here, not really a stretch for those guys. Not really a stretch. I mean, they have a very different worldview, and we are somewhat handicapped and hamstrung by our view, which we've now been, perpetuating for the last 200-300 years. I guess mind-body problem. The separation between science and the spiritual and so forth. So we're living in a Descartesian universe now, right? His worldview, unjustly so, because he didn't actually have that worldview. We just termed it that. So science is everything. It's totally divorced from the non-physical.
And what's weird is, Mickey, I've got a graphic up here. It's that thing that I've talked about where, if you sort of think something's a little weird about the corner of the room and you peel it back and there's something else there.
Yep.
It doesn't make sense. And that's the detachment we have from what is currently being worked on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So and this is really a large problem. Now we've got a bit of time left, and we can probably go into the time travel cover up as well. But I want to quickly share this with you. So we're like I said, we're hamstrung, and we don't really we're not equipped to deal with some phenomena. You know, some phenomena. Again, I will probably get a lot of hate for this, but I don't think that some phenomena can be studied with the common scientific method. Right? You can't, like, spiritual phenomena, or paranormal. Because I think that maybe we're being studied back. I mean, okay, I'll give you a very simple example, very simple example, which is in the realm of hard science, which is again our favorite, is the double slit experiment. Now, in a rational Newtonian Einsteinian world, a particle is a particle and a wave is a wave.
Yep.
Right. Boom. That's pretty clear, right? Boom. And even if they were both, they would be both all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all the time.
Yep.
However, if you look at the double slit experiment, you're shooting this electron through this screen which has two slits, and you're looking at it, it will behave like an electron, which means like a particle. And it'll be a certain pattern that will be on the other side of the screen, where the actual impact points are. And you expect that, right? You're observing it, you expect it. Good. You turn the observer off, whatever observational method you're using, your eyes, some kind of instrument, it doesn't matter. It behaves like a wave, which means there's an interference pattern. So the particle goes through the slit, it doesn't go through the slit, it goes through both slits, it goes through the other slit, it doesn't exist at all. Mm-hmm. All these things are happening, and this is called a quantum state, right? So in a quantum state, everything that we possibly could imagine or that could possibly exist exists. It's a quantum state, right? Until it's observed and it collapses into our reality. It collapses into one wave function, into one form, into one reality that we observe. And we're living in a consensus reality, right? If we all believed that we could fly, then I guess what? I reckon we could all fly, but we don't. So we, stay nailed to the ground. So this is a big problem. So how do we solve it? We don't have the tools for it because no, it's empirical science, so we need to do the experiment over and over and over again, rather than approaching it maybe from a different point of view, right? And maybe we have to look at, maybe we should bring psychics in. I don't know, right? Maybe I'm just spitballing here, but we need to get a different approach for some phenomena. Empirical science works really well with the stuff that we're used to.
If you can see it and touch it, it's probably ideal for empirical science.
Absolutely.
But we've now entered into a realm where we're leaving that science behind.
Yeah.
That science is long gone. So as Mekki said, the moment you start to record which slot that electron goes through, the electron or the photon goes through, it behaves differently. Now, how can it know whether it's being watched or not?
Can't.
It can't, but in fact, it does.
Yeah.
It does appear to understand that we're looking at it and wants to return back to normal.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't make any sense that it should do that, and that's why there is a huge gap between the physical world and what we know about and this quantum world, the tiny world of nothing. Nothing makes sense. It's almost existential physics. It doesn't make sense. But it does make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's everywhere. It's nowhere, and it didn't exist.
Yep.
I just love that, Mekki. That bends the minds of most hardened physicists who have closed the book on learning.
Yeah.
It bends their minds.
It is counterintuitive to our. I'm knocking on my table here on our real world. What's reality? Whatever makes you trip in the dark. Well, okay. I get that. But there are other planes, other realms. Obviously, the quantum space, which is tiny, which is completely different to what we would expect. But that's a worry because our reality is based upon it. It is built from the building blocks of the quantum space. Make no mistake; these are not two separate entities.
No,
it's not like over there in corner B we have quantum space, and over here we've got the Einsteinian universe in corner A. No. Our reality is built upon the quantum form on which it floats. Okay, from the tiny to the bigger. And in fact, it's entirely anthropomorphic. We look at ours as the measure of all things. We just happen to be, we think we're in the middle of it, right? Well, you know what? There are so many spaces up and down from us. I don't even want to talk about it because it upsets me. Because we are not the measure of all things. We are not the measure of all things. Okay.
That's so true.
And this is so. Time travel is the same. the time travel is the same thing. Maybe we have to approach it from a different angle. Maybe we have to look at it differently. And maybe there are rules in place, right? I mean, there are natural laws that are very difficult to break. I mean, there are. It's a fact of life that they are. I mean, if you jump up or if you fall down a ladder, you will hurt yourself. That's gravity for you. Of course, we can work on getting some anti-gravitational engines happening. But again, there are certain things that will happen if you just do things. Okay, and these are the laws of nature, and maybe something is governing time travel, and maybe that's why the multiverse theory is such an elegant solution to the paradox problem, because there aren't any paradoxes, because there's an infinite multitude of universes next to each other, up on top of each other, beside each other, in front of each other. It doesn't really matter which way you picture it, like a book. Picture it like a book. That might be easiest, where everything happens. Everything, in fact, everything that you can imagine is happening. Okay, and everything that you cannot imagine is also happening. Because if there are two possibilities, either we're in a multiverse, in fact 3 possibilities, or we're in a universe that's infinite. Okay, in both of those possibilities, everything that you can imagine and cannot imagine and never thought of and is beyond your imagining is happening. Okay, in both of those possibilities.
I'm with you.
Or thirdly, the universe is not unlimited or infinite. It's in fact a limited space, in which case, yeah, fair enough, we actually will reach a point where we can learn no more. Oh, my head is full. Can I go home, please? Okay, so that could happen.
I would have
right?
hated you if I was a teacher at your school.
Yeah, I was a lot less outspoken in those
Mekki,
days.
Mekki, what about number 4? What about it being a hologram? Maybe the whole thing is in fact indeed artificial.
Totally. Look, and again, this is where our hypothesis comes in. And Dave and I, well, I don't know, I certainly believe that this reality construct is artificial. I don't think we belong here. I think we're held here against our will, potentially, or maybe we're masochistic, I don't know, but we do not belong here. When we dream, and I'm going to lose a lot more of you now.
Here we go.
When we dream, that's when we actually explore the real world.
Yeah.
The real world, because in your dream, you're not bound to this physical world. Your mind roams free, probably through your pineal gland, right? It probably accesses other dimensions, other planes of existence. And in your dream, everything makes sense. I want you to remember that next time you dream. In your dream, everything makes sense because your consciousness is expanded. When you wake up and you remember the dream, which many of us do not, but if you do remember it, it doesn't make any sense. Because your consciousness, your mind, has been limited once again by the physical construct that is the brain and the body, so we are no longer as open as we were while we dreamt. We are now limited. Limited is the word here, okay? So that's the possibility that Dave and I favor. Does not preclude any of the other possibilities either, because believe it or not, in a multiverse, a limited universe is also a possibility. Do you know what I mean? Like if it's a multiverse, then there's also within that multiverse there's a universe that is limited in size and scope, and that's all that exists.
Hang on, Mekki, that sounds perfect for the current naysayers. They can go and live in that one. In fact, I think they do live in that one.
Yeah. And you will say to me, no, that's not possible, Mekki, because obviously there's a multiverse. And if you put that limited universe in the multiverse, that doesn't make any sense because there are other things. No. See, this is where you have to think on a higher plane. I'm not saying that I can do it, but I believe that there's absolutely no logical, on that higher plane, reason why a limited universe, where nothing else exists, can't coexist with a multiverse where everything exists.
Well, no,
and that's
exactly
the leap we have to make, right?
I think we're already across it. Just imagine a room full of computers. They're all in the same room, and they're all connected to each other, like they're networked, so they've got a network cable plugged into them, or their Wi-Fi, it's irrelevant. But for them all to be connected and sitting in the same space, but each one of them is doing completely different things. Each environment running on every one of them is different. If I was running a different virtual reality game on each one of them, I could be in any or all of them or none of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that help?
You've just described the quantum form. You've just described the quantum state of existence. That's exactly what it is. All of those, none of those, simultaneously, and then something completely different, where you've got a asparagus 4 nose. Who knows, right?
That's right.
So this we have to really embrace this and run with it, because it has got massive implications for our existence. People always say, you know what? It doesn't really matter. I'm not concerned. I mean, how does it affect my life? Guys, this is affecting your life. You're not here just the one time. You're coming back, if the hypothesis is right. You're coming back. You're coming back every time, and if you don't want to learn, you'll come back forever in this reality.
Good luck with that Groundhog Day.
I don't want to come back forever and ever and
Yeah.
ever. I really don't. I want to get out of here one of those days. I don't think I'll make it this lifetime because I'm just not as advanced. And if you're
Thank you.
thinking I'm out there, then talk to people that are advanced.
Well, I would love to know what it was that advanced you. Is it just knowing? Is it discovering the box? Who knows?
I think you have to, I think okay, so again, we believe that there's a critical time coming when our numbers will simply push us across.
Yeah.
So the human mind's imprisoned and we think the number is 7.7 billion roughly, right? So close to 8 billion, but not quite. So 2020 is the time that we think it happens, unless a lot of us are killed before then. But I think that's when critical mass is reached. Why do we think that? Well, it fits in with the Fibonacci sequence. It fits in with a whole bunch of other critical systems. Radioactive material goes critical all by itself if there's enough of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay? You don't actually have to do anything, and it just does it by itself. So this is our hypothesis. Again, these are huge leaps of faith. But the point is, of course, that there is a critical mass, potentially, which Christians call the rapture, potentially, right? And others call other things. And at which point we could ascend automatically, right? Now, but we have to reach that first. However, if you're not so fortunate as to be part of this ascension and this instantaneous thing, you have to work on yourself a lot. I believe you have to be a non-consumer of meat, so you have to be vegetarian. I think you should not pollute your body with substances other than it's meant to. You also have to cut all links. So all the things that you think are good, and this is where I fall down, right? All the things that you think are good, yeah, that's right. They're actually bad. All the things you think are good are actually bad. Everything in this life that gives you pleasure or makes you feel good or you think is a good thing to do is a bad thing to do for you and escaping here, because these are all just chains you put on yourself. A lot of people realize this. I mean, Charles Dickens in a Christmas Carol. This is the season for it, right? Now, this will show to you the partner of Ebenezer Scrooge. I think his name was Mortley, or it doesn't really matter what his name was. Anyway, Morley. He comes to visit Ebenezer in that night, and he has chains around him, right? And goes, "What is this? These are the chains I made for myself during my life." We do the same thing. A camel will go through the eye of a needle before a rich man will make it to heaven. Now, again, I got a lot of haters here for sure. I believe that Jesus was he was talking about escaping this reality prison. He was talking about escaping this reality and going to our true home, right? Which we might consider paradise, because if you're home is where the heart is, and so forth. He was talking about that. So the more you load yourself down with this world, the more you become, entrenched in this world, the less likely you are to be able to escape it.
Do you know what,
Okay.
Becky, I gave an example to some people at work the other day, and they said, but it wouldn't be terrible if everything was destroyed. I go, it's only stuff. It is only stuff. That's all it is. It's stuff.
You can take none of it with you. You won't even take your body with you. Now, people can argue against and for the existence of a soul, a mind that survives the body or what. I think we've got ample evidence that now shows there is a life after death and again, rebirth and reincarnation. And we've gone into this in some detail, guys.
We'll be interviewing a guy coming up soon. Yep.
Yes, we will. And so this, I think, I'm not saying this is 100% fact, but it's very strong. I'm leaning very, very strongly toward the reincarnation fact here, and it will affect you, and you can take nothing with you. And you know what the killer is in this prison? Everybody starts from scratch. I think, except for the guys that figured it out, and these are the elite. They figured it out. They don't either they live forever or they figured out a way to retain their memories as they're reborn each time. In fact, they're pinpointing people, right? In Tibet, the next Dalai Lama will be this guy. Boom, right? I mean, it's astonishing stuff. You can't close your mind to it. We are starting from scratch every time. If you're a rich dude and you're not part of the elite, you will start from scratch again. Nothing you can do. This is the perfect prison, right? This is it. And some people go insane in it, right? They think about it. If someone said, "Oh yeah, I was lifted at that time, I was reincarnated," lock him up. Not in every culture, but certainly in ours. Yeah, you were reincarnated. Sure, you were.
This society, we've only got about a minute left, but this society certainly doesn't favour the free thinker, and we're seeing the shackles being put on everybody who's not allowing themselves to live outside of the box. That's it. That's what they want, isn't it, Mackie?
That's exactly what they want. And there's the music, and we're going to keep on going with time travel next week, guys.
Absolutely. That'll be part 3, so if you're on YouTube, just find the next one, all right? We'll see you later. Thanks very much for listening to Shiny Side Out. Take care.